Hello, fellow peoples. Ooh, let's see if I can get through this. I'm just coming off this crazy sore throat. Lots of coughing, lots of hacking. I've made attempts to try to record a cast for y'all, but yeah, it hasn't gone over very well. This is the first day that I'm not hacking incessantly. So this is the post Fast Fret Fingers solo podcast. He just recorded one and he's going to be releasing his this week, which I'm very, very excited about. Very, very excited about. But here's something I want to talk about. I've been listening generally on my ride home from work, which is what I'm doing right now. A lot of times I'm just singing, doing lots of singing. But I've been listening to podcasts exclusively on the rides to and from work because I can't sing without hacking up a lung. So I've been listening to a lot, and there's one podcast that I want to talk about that I listened to exclusively this week, and actually I'd listened to 2 episodes previously of this podcast, and I said I'll get back to it, and I'll listen to some more later. It's a limited edition podcast in that there was only a number of episodes released. It has a beginning and an end. It is a story that is being told. And that podcast is called Echo Podcast, or also known as Echo Podcast 2019, all one word. A little tricky to find on some podcast players, but if you do look up Echo Podcast, look for Skye Thorleifson, do a search just on general Google and you'll find it, and then you can grab the RSS feed from there if it doesn't pop up in your regular podcast browser. So I hopped in on episode 3 this week and worked my way through all of the rest of the episodes. And this is great stuff. When I got into podcasting, was it 3.5 years ago or whatever it was, I had perceptions of what podcasting was. General, this is the quality of what a podcast is going to sound like. This is the format of it. And I didn't expect to hear something like this. Now, I know there's a lot of radio play style podcasts out there, but I'm not that familiar with them. I've listened to some and they're okay. But this one, I don't know what it is. Well, no, I do know what it is, and I'm kind of going to explain to you why this one captivated me so much. I met Skye, I guess more than a year ago. He and I were both at the Manitoba Podcast Festival of 2018, and I met him there, and he seemed like a nice enough guy. He was working on an audio drama. I was like, well, that sounds pretty cool. And you meet a lot of people in life, and you don't. We as a society fail, I think, in truly giving credit where credit's due. Specifically, is like, oh, he's got an audio podcast. So that sounds great. I'm going to check it out sometime, and I didn't. So, Skye, I want to apologize because I said I would listen and I didn't. Because honestly, it's like, you meet so many people. Hey, I've got a band. Hey, I've got an album out. Hey, I wrote a book. Hey, I made a movie. Hey, I've got a YouTube channel. Hey, I'm on Twitch and I'm playing video games. You meet all these people, and with the best of intentions, you say, yeah, I'm going to try to check that out. But invariably, there's too much content, and you can't check everything out. And I passed on this, which, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I passed. So when I reconnected with Skye, or when I met him again at the second annual podcast festival, I was like, oh, there's that Skye guy again. And he's got this audio drama thing. Oh, I promised I would listen to it. So when I knew he was going to be there, I actually went in the week before, and I went and listened to as many podcasts of people that were going to be there to try to, so I have something to talk about with them, with everybody that I was going to meet. And that was kind of my plan. And it's like, oh, damn it, it's that Skye guy from last year again. And I still haven't listened to his freaking podcast. Like, what an asshole I am. So I'm like, okay, fine. Get off your lazy ass McGinity and, listen to the guy's freaking podcast. He put a lot of effort into it. At least give him 5 minutes. Like, go listen to it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or half an hour or whatever you got, and at least, have something to talk to him about it. Be nice about it. Like, just go freaking talk to the guy, but go research his stuff so you know what you're talking about. So I did that. A week before, I listened to episode 1. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. And so I went and spoke to Skye. He probably doesn't remember me. He probably doesn't know me from a hole in the wall. But regardless, I was really, really impressed. I didn't know what I was going to get, and an audio drama, like, what are they going to do? It's not a movie. It's not going to work. No, this totally worked. Conceptually, it's just genius. Just genius. So this week I finished it. And am I happy I gave this entire run a go? I know it's one thing to try someone's things out, whatever they're doing, whatever they're working on, someone's album or podcast site or whatever. No, I dove in deep this week and I listened to the whole freaking thing, and I didn't listen to anything else in between. I just went episode to episode. Anytime I could steal, doing the dishes in the kitchen, I got my headphones on. I'm trying to listen to it, and I'm also trying to listen to it. Like, never mind the content of it, but the actual technical side of it, and what was done, and how there's some stuff is a little quieter and some stuff's a little louder. There was a lot of attention to detail put in on the production side. Now, I'm not the tech guy on this show. That's my brother. That's his job. But even me is, as simple as I am on the technical side of things, I was duly impressed with this. It was really, really good. So listening, now that I've listened to the whole thing, I can put all those things aside. The technical aspects of it was great. The Foley work, the voice acting, all that sort of stuff. It was all great stuff. All great stuff. But now that I've, listened to it as a whole, this is even better than my initial, launch into it. It was like, oh, this is really good. No, this was phenomenal. From the writing standpoint, let's take everything else aside, production quality, voice acting, all that stuff. Let's just put all of that aside for a second. To write something like this, just amazing. Now, those that know you, those of you that know me, know that I'm a writer, and that's what I do. That is my primary love. It's everything about me that is me. Everything that defines me is writing. I'm writing all the time. I'm writing music, or I'm writing, I've got written various books, or I've written various comic books, or, I'm always writing. I love writing. I love the flow of words. I love the flow of ideas. I love telling stories and captivating an audience. I really love that. And any kind of writing I do, doesn't matter, which aspect of writing that I do. Film writing, that's another thing I've done. I've actually made, I've actually made a movie. All these things that I've done, it's all boils down to one thing. It's writing, and I love writing. And when I listen to and watch a movie, or watching a TV show, or anything like that, all those things that I that I'm entertained by. I'm always looking at how things were written, and how characters were fleshed out, and how a story is played out. And this week I went into deep analysis on what Skye pulled off with this thing, and I was floored. The elegance of what was written, the story that was told. There was a lot of things that he did with this that were, I just admire from a writing standpoint. There was a mythological bent to everything. He was telling like a new mythology, a new way, but he was also going forth and honoring mythology and how people told stories in the ancient days, how mythology began, how the stories of the Greek gods or the Roman gods or the Egyptian gods, or you name it, like all of that stuff. He paid homage to it in this. He created a new mythology, but in the stories that the main character Matthew tells, he tells many stories in this play, and in these stories he's talking about Odysseus and all these ancient myths that happened before, all these ancient great stories. So he's using old stories and using the parallels of them, because there's mythology. I'm going to assume, and I could be wrong, and if he hasn't read it, Skye's even more genius, but borrowing from Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth, I'm assuming he's read it, and if he hasn't, even better on him, because the Power of Myth is one of my favorite books of all time. Strongly recommend you go read it. I am a big mythology buff. I love mythology, everything about it, and I use it in my own writing, and he did too. And just there's a scope, there's a gravitas, the way that the character arcs of each of the characters, Matthew and the I don't want to give anything away. The other main character, we'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil it for anyone listening to it. But the other main character, the companion to Matthew, there's so many levels to it. It's just brilliant how he weaves in ancient myth, creating a new myth within the story, and the character arc, or the story arc for Matthew throughout this whole thing is quite good. But then also for his companion, I don't want to spoil anything, and then for the other character who comes in towards the end, the friend of Matthew, who was reintroduced at the end. Her arc as well is very well done, and thematically, mythologically, like there's this grand, I don't know what to call it, this grand arc about it. There's the way it's built and the way it resolves itself. There's just this classical storytelling that's done with each of those three characters. It's just amazing, and the ending of it, the way it ends, the resolution of everyone's character arcs, but the resolution of the story itself in on itself. It's just is great writing. This is really good writing, and this is something I would have immensely enjoyed reading as a short story or a book or whatever. But that being said, to take that vision of the story that he came up with and to go about and translate it into another medium. So instead of putting it out as a book or a short story or anything like that, he chose this medium. But specifically, he chose this medium Specifically, he chose this medium because of the main character. And I'm not spoiling too much by saying this, but the main character, he's a blind character, and he chose to do it as a podcast, as an audio play, as a radio play, audio play, whatever you want to call it. He chose to do it that way because if you're getting the perspective from the character who's blind, he doesn't see what's happening. Everything has to be described through sound, through voice. I mean, it's incredibly effective. It's an amazing idea to do it this way and to do it as a podcast. It's serialized. You know, it just plays so well, and it just makes so much sense. It's an obvious choice to make, but it wouldn't have been obvious when he wrote this. But he had the vision to carry through with it. Thirdly, I don't know what number I'm on, but I mean, that was great, a great idea. I'd be very curious to see what Skye would do in a movie setting, what sort of movie you put together. Oh yeah, the other thing I was going to say was, also as a writer, there's certain crutches you can use, and one of the crutches is, you know, when it's you know, first person, there's going to be a narration going through it. You know, then I traveled to the cave, and then I walked down. And, you know, it's an easy thing to do, to narrate what's happening, because it provides the reader a chance to know what's going on by describing what the character's going through. But because the character is blind and doesn't see these things, he chose to write this with no narration whatsoever. But there's still a narrative style to it, but never once is there narration, except at the beginning of every episode, which ends up not being a narration at all. It's actually something else. So, just the complexities to the writing and the execution and how to execute on all this is very, very genius. I'm really, really impressed. So, I mean, great story, great way. And like I said, I write in many different forms. Sometimes the story I want to tell is in a song. Sometimes the story I want to tell is in a film or in a script. Sometimes the story I want to tell. The method he chose to convey this particular story and the way he executed on it is just great, man. Like, really, really freaking awesome. So on to the other things. Like, just despite the, you know, all the great things I've said so far, the actors in this are actually really, really good. I don't know how he did the casting for it or how he chose, you know, who's going to be which part, but the reading of, I guess I'm just spoiling. So Athos, who is the companion character in this, I'm not going to tell you who Athos is, but the actor they brought in to do his voice, freaking genius. There's a weight to the way he speaks, and because of who this character is, the way he's read and acted has to be done a very, very specific way, to not come off cheesy or schmaltzy or campy. And this actor pulled it off, like in a grand way. And when he speaks, you feel that majesticness to him. There's something to the way he's acted this that, I mean, this, in the wrong hands, this could have come off incredibly horrible. There's a specific way. I don't know how he and Skye, I can't remember the actor's name, I apologize, but I don't know how they agreed upon the delivery of the lines. I don't even know if I don't know if to say there's an accent to the way he speaks, but it's almost accent-less. But it almost sounds, it's unique. So there's no, I don't know how to describe it. The choices made by the actor and by the direction of this are very genius. When we meet Athos's sister, hope I'm not giving away too much. The acting there, again, is unique, distinctive. It's almost accentless, but with an accent that you can't really place, but speaks in tones and inflection that is very unique, but totally fits the character. It's unusual, familiar, but distinct, and you can't quite, you know, put your finger on, like, where's this accent from? But it's accentless in a way. It's very hard to describe, but huge standout for me. The acting on on the sister character is just amazing. And then the lead actor, he just who does Matthew, he's really, really good, and I can't say enough. Like it, for something like this, you could easily get bored, but you don't, and that's all on the acting. That's all on the actors. The actors are able to pull it off. Excuse me, especially when there's no narrative and you're not really sure what's going on. They somehow can convey what's happening. The Foley work on here is amazing. The special effects are used to great effect, especially in the final episode. Pulling that off, it was easy for it to become, pardon the term, but it could have been a clusterfuck. But somehow the editing there was really good, and the choice of effects actually were very effective. It very much worked. And yeah, it was good. And the actress that comes in as the older friend of Matthew, she was really good, and very complex character, and there's a lot going on, and just by the way she acted the part, it conveyed a lot of levels. And there is a lot of levels to this character. It's probably the most complex character of the bunch. And she was just really, really, really good, because there's so much going on, and there's so much that's not said that could be too, if it was said, it'd just be too descriptive. You want to convey what she's feeling instead of describing what she's feeling. And this actress pulled it off. Like, I don't know how much prep she did, but definitely supporting Oscar nod to this actress for sure. Just amazing. And that final episode, like, what a culmination of a story. The way the final episode ends, the way it builds, and I didn't expect an ending like that, and it totally took me by surprise. Not that it was a swerve or anything, but it just gets bigger and more epic. And to not lose the story and how complicated that ending could have been, but it was told in such a way and with great direction. This is where Skye, deserves a lot of credit, and how he directed that final scene, that final episode, I should say. Just great stuff. Just amazingly great stuff. And so, yeah. This was really good, man. Like, so Skye, if you ever want any help with the next thing you decide to pull off, I'd be very interested in being involved. I just thoroughly enjoyed this. So thank you for putting together something so different and so original and so cool. Like, I really appreciate you doing this, and I'm signing off here, man. Kudos to you. I can't wait to see what the next project's going to be. If it's half as good as this one, it'll be better than most of the things out there. And yeah, that's it, man. And you did really good. I really liked your episode you did with Beaver. Beaver Does Movies. You had that little episode where you give him a little bit of education on a very great filmmaker in David Lynch. So thanks for introducing our friend James to that stuff, because amazing stuff. Anyway, I'm going to sign off here. Peace, love, and hugs. See you guys on the flip side, and we'll see ya.